The number one skill that has made me better at making content, whether podcasts or videos, and has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars is my ability to sell ideas, concepts, and my own services and products. If you are a podcaster, YouTube creator, or social media creator, you understand the importance of selling your audience on your content with your hook in the first few seconds. Otherwise, they will click away. And if you're a business owner, you know that you'll lose a sale if you don't convey your message right. The good news is that being good at selling ideas or products or convincing people to take action doesn't require you to be born with this skill or be shady, sleazy, or deceptive. In this episode, you will become very good at selling with integrity and always keeping the best interests of your audience and clients. And for this, I invited Coach Katy Hoagland to give us the training. Katy specializes in teaching entrepreneurs how to master selling conversations and selling high-ticket offers. Katy has worked with the best coaches in the industry like Jerisha Huck and Kelly Roach, and I was fortunate to connect with her at the CEO Summit last year. This episode will literally make you money. But before we get into the episode, if you are a business owner and you want to launch a podcast, I created a mini course exactly for you. It's called Idea to Podcast Simplify for Business Owners, and you don't want to start your podcast without this mini course. For more information, you can go to podcastingsmart.com or you can find the link in the description of this episode. Okay, so get cozy, get ready to take notes, grab your favorite drink. Class is about to start. Hot Sounds Cool presents Content Jefe, the podcast that helps online business owners make better content and more money. Let's jefe up. Katy, I'm excited to have you here. My first question to you is, why is it important for coaches, people who offer services online, startups, or people who also sell products online to learn about sales conversations and how to conduct effective sales conversations and the psychology behind it? Why does your work matter?
In a nutshell, it matters because sales is really the heart of any successful business. And I think a lot of us get into business to have a business, not a hobby. And so we need to learn that crucial element to have a thriving business. When we look at the psychology piece of things, there's so many layers to that. It's really a personal growth journey and it has to start somewhere. And you'll progress and get better at it over time. But it matters because if you have a gift, if you're an expert or if you've mastered something and you're keeping it inside and you're keeping it in a corner and not sharing it with the world, one, that's not very fulfilling. Two, it's not going to make a successful business. And three, it sounds like that's just fear that needs to be overridden with courage so that you can help other people and serve other people with your expertise.
Something that catch my attention as I was doing research for this interview with you is that besides your impressive track record of taking a startup coaching business from 1 million to 10 million and work with well-known coaches in the industry, you mentioned something that really stuck with me, and that is how to do sales with integrity, grace, and lots of love. And I think there's this misconception, I have it too, that we associate sales conversations and the sales process with being deceptive, tricking people into buying something that they don't need. A good example would be like when you go to a car dealer and try to buy a car. So you have all these bad associations, but when you tell me that you can approach the sales process with integrity, grace, and lots of love, I'm in for it. Could you elaborate a little bit more on this?
100%. And first, I want to say it's okay to think that way because as a society, we've been structured to believe that sales is that way, very me focused. What is in it for me? How can I get this deal? Coffee for closer type of mentality, right? So, first, I think just acknowledging and accepting that, okay, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just what society has done to us. Now, let's grow and override that with what we know today. What we know today is that sales is just a transference of energy, and it's just simply helping someone make the best next step decision for their goals. And we can't really do that unless we fully understand what those goals are and understand what their challenges are that are in the way of them making that decision. Hence, empathetic questions, seeking to understand before being understood, and simply just having a conversation like you would with someone that you truly love or care about. I always say when you have sales conversations, just pretend that you're speaking with your best friend And what would you tell them? You're probably going to have those hard conversations and say the hard thing, maybe some tough love, because you're focused on what's in their best interest. You're not so much focused on what's in it for me. And so that's, I think, the perspective shift that anyone that's selling services, especially in the online space, when you don't have an opportunity to get to know someone in person, it has to be taken because we have to have that level of empathy to build the trust and to understand if I'm even a good fit for your solution. Am I the best fit? We need to also accept the fact that if you're not a good fit, it's okay. It's okay to turn people away. It's okay to say, after speaking with you and understanding what your true core problems are and what you're looking to accomplish, I may not be the best fit for you, but here's some resources that are, or here's a book, or here's something that can help you along your journey. So I think going into this process with lots of love, we have to remember what that comes with. It comes with rejection as well from other people
Mhm.
rejecting us or us rejecting other people. It goes both ways. But in that rejection process, I think having resources on the back end, because if you really do care about that person's best interests, even if you don't work with them, you want to send them with something, right? Because you care about them.
Mhm.
Even follow up with them. They could be a good fit to work with you in the future if they maybe gain that tidbit of information, or if they're maybe become more coachable over time or more committed. But really, it's just about caring for people more than anything else and taking the focus off of you and what you have to gain and putting the focus on, is this going to make this person's life better?
When you mention all these things, it puts me at ease. Now I can breathe. I have to do a mental reset and just go into it like a conversation that you are going to have with your best friend and always having their best interest in mind. However, I see the other side of things too. When you are new and you need to make a sale, you need to pay your bills, you need that money in the bank, there's a level of I need this that comes with you into that sales conversation. How do you balance the desire of getting the business and not getting too pushy or overstepping the boundaries of a sales conversation?
Love this question. Such a great question. Before I dive into that, I do want to make one statement too that you can do influence in two ways, right? You can influence people through manipulation or through inspiration. So the choice is yours. What I preach and coach and hope for the world is that more people influence through inspiration, which means
I
practicing what you
love that.
preach, being
Oh,
the
I'm getting the
example.
goosies.
Yeah. And so
Oh,
you can transfer that influence through the way that you even conduct that call, the way that you show up online, the way that you speak to people, the way that you ask the right questions and truly seek to understand before being understood. That's like the core value. That's number one. So, leading from scarcity, right? At some point in our lives, especially if we're making the transition from maybe a corporate job or a steady paycheck every 2 weeks into entrepreneurship, that can be a scary move, right? We're going from a lot of certainty to very little certainty. And that's a basic core human need that's not being fulfilled. So, in that pursuit of just perseverance and satisfying that need, there may be those feelings of, I need this to get the next client, or even just keep me motivated and keep me inspired to keep going, or to pay this bill, pay that bill to prove to myself that I can actually do it. So, let's acknowledge those are real feelings. But there's a way to look at that with an abundance mindset and not a scarcity mindset. And I think that that is absolutely crucial in going into sales conversations because energy is everything when it comes to
mhm.
sales. And if you hop on that sales conversation with someone needing something more than they need you, they're going to smell it. We call it commission breath in the sales world.
Mhm.
So you can smell it over the phone, you can sense it. Sales is almost like dating. If you're the hot girl in the room, it's the hot girl theory, and you're getting all of the attention, you're not going up to everyone asking for their phone number, afraid that they're not going to give it to you, right?
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
probably going to have your pick of the litter. So when you go into a sales conversation, have that hot girl mentality. Be that
Oh.
person in the room that people seek to be with because what you have to offer is extremely valuable. And working with the wrong people is only going to hinder your growth more than it is help it. And so when we're operating from a sense of scarcity on the back end, we see later on in the business that we have low retention rates, we get very few referrals or graduation rates, depending on what you're offering. So if we're thinking at scale and keeping the end in mind, we want to create this flywheel effect in the business, right? We want to work with the right people who refer, who renew, and who we can retain so that we can
Hmm.
do less sales on the front end and more retention.
I love that. That had girl mentality. That I will remember. I will remember all of that. Let's say that you are a creator. We started creating content and putting content online, and then along the way of creating that content, then is when we discover that we have something of value, and we package it and we started talking about it, and now we are met with the reality that we have to sell. And no sales background whatsoever. So this is an unknown territory. How would you coach a person through this transition to feeling comfortable selling their services?
That's another great question. So, first piece of advice that I would give is you have different hats as the entrepreneur. So, when you're in creator mode, you have your creator hat on. When you're in maybe coach mode, if you have a program, you have your coach hat on. I would say when you hop on that sales conversation, be aware to take off that creator hat and put on the decision maker hat because really you're just coaching people through making a decision. And I see far too often people that are experts or they've reached a certain level of mastery in their craft on those sales conversations, they're giving away so many
Hmm.
goodies, so many tidbits of information. And at the end of the call, the prospect is like, thank you so much. This call was amazing. You're wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Hmm.
Bye bye. And then we've given our expertise away for
Yeah.
free. We don't want to
Hmm.
do that. So we want to be mindful to put that hat on as a salesperson, knowing that we're coaching someone through making a decision, not coaching someone on how to do the thing that they need to work with you to accomplish. Right. So that's number one. Got to make sure we're coming with the right hat. Two, it will be scary, but you're going to have to do it afraid because that's exactly what you want your clients to do when they work with you because they're also probably afraid to make that decision and take that leap of faith, work with you. Maybe if you don't have a bunch of testimonials, maybe if that's your first client that you're enrolling, they're taking a bet on you because of the value that you're saying you're going to provide. That could be a scary process for someone to say yes. They're going to do it anyway if they see the value. So if you see the value in helping someone else, you're going to have to just do it afraid and be that energetic alignment. So I would say your first probably 25 calls are going to be pretty scary. Just like any type of sport or anything new that you're getting into, you're going to be wobbly. You're not going to quite have your balance yet. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I would say dive into those conversations and have as many as you can early on and swiftly so that you can make as many mistakes as you can early on and swiftly. Take note of those things, listen to your calls, and continue to improve the process. I would say after about 50 to 100 conversations, you're starting to really know your prospects better than they know themselves. You're understanding the way that they think. You're asking more strategic questions. I call it the interviewing the prospect phase. So, in between like your first and 25th call, you're really just interviewing. If a sale comes out of that, fantastic. But I wouldn't view it as a sales call. I would more so view it as an interview with your ideal client to really get to know their needs, their wants, their triggers, their step points, and fine tune the level of questions that you're asking them as you develop your sales script. At this point, I've done 4,000 consultative strategy sessions. So I understand those people on the other end very well, mainly accountants. So I understand accounting businesses, how they think, the main problems. So the more you can niche down for your avatar or your ideal buyers, the better too, because then you're having consistent phone conversations or DMs with a similar type of person. You can really get to know them and develop your expertise in that area.
Hmm. You know, when you were saying coaching people through making the decision, I have made the mistake of giving away too
Yeah.
much. You come from this place of, I want to help you. I have lost prospects because of that. Nobody wants to know all of it during a sales conversation. They're not interested in learning all the nuances and the things they're up against. They're there because they want to sign up for your services. They're not there to get overwhelmed with all the things that you know about the industry and your craft and all that. And so I
Mhm.
have made that mistake.
The best of us have. We've all been there.
You said the first 25 calls will be more like you're interviewing your prospect. What kind of questions do you ask during this 25 first calls?
Excellent question. So there's different frameworks for this sales conversation. And this is something I teach for my coaching program and the clients that I work with and really mastering this conversation. The first element is building rapport. framing the call, and then getting into uncover questions. There's a few other pieces after that, but those are the first three. You definitely want to build rapport before just jumping into questions, asking some open ended questions about that person as an individual, really showing interest just in them as a person. And then before getting into those uncover questions, you really want to frame that call. And this is something I've seen so many people skip over. And then at the end, they're kicking themselves because they didn't set expectations. So just like you go and watch a YouTube video, it says, this is a 3-minute video. We're going to go through here. And by the end, you're going to learn this. It's kind of like that. So you want to set the tone for the call by saying something like, hey, Veronica, we're going to chat for probably about 30 minutes today. I am going to ask some questions about you, about your business. The more that I know, the more vulnerable that you get with me, the better that I'm going to be able to help you, whether it makes sense to work together with me or someone else. So by the end, we'll be able to really have some clear data and see if it makes sense to work together. If not, perfectly fine. I'll have some resources for you, but we'll dive into some questions now. Does that sound good? And then we start the call. That's a segment that I would not skip over whatsoever. Maybe 1 minute max, and then get into some questions that are open ended about their dream state and then about what their current problems are. Depending on what you're selling, this can vary, but I typically say you want to ask open ended questions to uncover emotional pain, maybe physical pain if you're selling something that helps them physically, mental pain, and financial pain. And then on the flip side, you want to ask open ended questions around the same things. What are their financial goals? What are their physical goals? What are their emotional, mental goals? How are they looking to improve? So you can start to identify gaps and then see the road from where they are now to where they want to go. Almost like you're a real estate agent and you're getting a feel for the things that they like. They want 3 bedrooms, a backyard. Okay, if we're starting out with this budget and we want the mansion on the hill with 10 bedrooms, but our budget doesn't match, then there's some gaps we need to have an honest conversation about. So uncover the opportunity cost, uncover their future goals, their dream estate, and then start to map out that path. If it makes sense to work with you, how you can be that vehicle to bridge that gap for them.
Then how do you make the transition from talking about goals and talking about emotional, physical, mental pain into let's talk about prices?
Yeah, so there's some segments in between there. So after you uncover and get a good feel for those things, then you want to diagnose. So almost like doctor framing. And when you're asking those questions, you do want to poke around a
Oh,
little bit. Just like if you go into the doctor with a headache, they may ask about your back and your spinal cord, which you wouldn't really think to know. But since that doctor is a subject matter expert, he or she is asking questions about these different areas that might be related to this other thing. So make sure you're asking those uncover questions as well, like getting to the root causes, so that you can diagnose a prescription for them, essentially. So that prescription may be the services that you're offering. It may not be the services that you're offering. It may be something else that's better. So when you get a clear picture of where they are now, where they want to go, how to bridge that gap, if you are the correct vehicle, then diagnose your solution and then qualify them before really pitching. So let's say, okay, it makes sense to work together. It seems like, Veronica, you're dealing with ABC and you want to get to XYZ. And it seems like this route is going to be the best route for you. You can expand on that in your diagnosis. So that's your diagnosis. I believe that I can absolutely be that solution for you to get you from here to there and be that guide. But before I really get into the solution, I know that from working with people, it only makes sense to work with people who are coachable, who are committed, and who are communicative. I've realized without those 3 characteristics, it doesn't matter how amazing my solution is, it's not going to work. Before I really go into those details, can you really let me know how you're feeling around those characteristics? Is there anything else that we have not discussed that might prevent you from showing up with those characteristics? You can ask something along those lines because you really want to make sure that you are enrolling the right people, but you also want to convey that you're not just enrolling anybody, right? I need to make sure that you're a good fit, and then we can go into talking about the solution. Sometimes people at that point will say, I'm super committed. I am lacking time. So I am a little bit concerned about maybe putting the time in that I need to get the solution. And that's where we handle the objection before we even go into the offer, before we go into the pitch. They're going to tell you what those objections are. Too many people go right into the pitch, right into the offer, and then they handle objections at the end of the call. That's too late. You kind of dug yourself a grave at that point. We want to make sure that We understand their objections before getting into the pitch so that the one conversation can just flow the way it's supposed to flow. So get into those things, really understand what's preventing them from showing up with those ideal characteristics before getting into the offer. And then if they agree, everything is good, they have the characteristics that you're looking for, then go ahead and just briefly go through your pitch, which should be different for each person. Not that you're offering something different, but you should really be customizing the way that you communicate your offer, taking into consideration the dream state that you just uncovered. So if you're looking to have that house on the hill and I'm a real estate agent, I would say by working together, I'm really going to sit down and have a thorough conversation about what your dream life looks like in 10 years, if this house is the right fit. And we're going to, if it makes sense, get you in that 10-bedroom house. But be specific, add those specific details so they feel like you're really speaking to their solution. And then go into your pitch very confidently. If it's a one price, just go to the one price. Don't offer all your payment plans. If it's one price, just name that price. And then you're quiet and you see what they have to say.
We work with creators in our community. They have different packages and different things that they offer. For example, somebody may come to us and say, we want to start making content and we think that the audio content may be the route that we want to take because we don't feel very confident in front of the camera. But then we get into the sales call and we realize that this person, they need to be on another platform with
Mhm.
video because of the nature of the content that they will be making and the product or service that they're trying to promote. Then at that point, it's hard to offer a price or pitch your offer because it's going to change depending on the project. There's just not one package that fits all of the different scenarios. So
Mhm.
is it okay for me to say, I'm going to get back to you with a proposal? How would you handle that situation? And how quick these things need to be done so we
Yeah.
don't lose our prospect?
That's a great question. This is going to vary for each business. So you want to make sure that you really understand your buyers and how they think, how they operate. If it's in their best interest for you to go back, maybe meet with a team, analyze what you've uncovered on the call, maybe create a Loom video and offer a proposal, then great. But I would really make sure when you're on that conversation that you're fully understanding the scope of their dream state. What is it that they're really looking to accomplish? Because they may think, okay, I only need to do audio, but this is my goal to have X amount of followers. If you know that, okay, that's going to require audio and video to get there in the amount of time that you want to get there, I would let them know that before
Mhm.
getting off. But be very direct as the subject matter expert, letting them know if this is what you want, then this is what's required. If you don't want to do that and you want to do audio, then this is likely the outcome. I would just give them those options on that call and just lay it out black and white so that they understand what it takes. And ideally, you want to get some form of commitment on that call before getting off. You could qualify them at the end of the call saying something like, so, after everything that we've spoken about, knowing that you want to get to X amount of followers and X amount of revenue and X amount of time, and that is going to require the video aspect on top of the audio. Is that something that you'd be willing to move forward with today? And see what they say. Get that commitment from them. It may not be a full financial commitment at that time, but see if they're actually ready for that, ready to do what it takes. And if so, you can say, okay, I'm going to go back to my team. We're going to put together a very thorough analysis of everything that we've spoken about. We'll send the proposal over. What we do is offer a $500 discount if you offer discounts for fast action, something along those lines. Some people love fast action discounts, some people hate it. Totally up to you what you want to do with that. But if you really want to be cognizant of respecting your own time, knowing that, okay, most of the time people are going to ghost you when you get off that call.
But
Most of the time people are going to
mhm.
fall off or become unresponsive. And you want to protect your time on your calendar as the entrepreneur too. So to protect your time and make sure that you're following up with people that are serious, what we like to do is just collect a $250 deposit or a $500 fully refundable deposit so that we can hold that space and hold that follow-up meeting on the calendar. We'll go over the proposal. If it doesn't make sense to work together at that point in time, that's fine. We'll refund the deposit. If it does, we'll just put that towards your first payment or towards the full payment, something along those lines. Completely up to you. That's one way that I see people doing it, and it's successful so that when they do have those follow-up meetings on the calendar, it's almost never that they get ghosted. They always have people show up for
Mhm.
those calls. So you just want to keep those things in mind and see what makes sense. If it's not a financial commitment that you're getting on that phone call, make sure you're getting at least a verbal commitment and qualifying. So say if you got the verbal commitment, yes, they do want to move forward, and you book the follow up for maybe 3 days later after the proposal and everything. I would then ask, is there any reason why you would not be able to show up for a meeting at 12 o'clock this Friday? Really
Yeah.
flesh those things out and make sure that they're not just blowing smoke up your butt. Sometimes
Mhm,
that
yeah.
happens. People are very nice, and it's hard for people to say no, especially to nice people. So sometimes they'll just verbally agree.
Is there a difference between a sales conversation when what's at stake or the services that I'm trying to sell are $500 or $6,000 or $15,000 or $30,000? Is there a difference in the way that you conduct that sales conversation, or is it the same?
So my expertise is working with people with high ticket offers 5,000 and above, but I have coached people who have sold digital courses or maybe small group coaching programs underneath the 5,000 mark. I would say the framework of building rapport, asking the questions is all still necessary, but it can be done in different ways. If you have an offer that's $5,000 or above, highly recommend your main call to action is driving people to a one-on-one conversation because they're just going to need that level of one-on-one time to really understand their specific challenges. If the offer is less than 5,000, then you could potentially be selling that in the DM. If you have maybe a $500 digital course, for example, that's teaching someone your expertise, you could still have qualifiers for that, but it's a digital course. If it doesn't involve any of your time and you just want to offer that to anyone, it's going to be a different process. I wouldn't say hop on a one-on-one conversation for a $500 digital course. It's not going to be a good use of your time. Probably made a course because you want time freedom and you don't want to do those things. But even if you have a $3,000, maybe small group coaching program where you're taking on multiple people at one time, that may require a conversation in your early stages. It may not. Ideally, it doesn't if it's less than 5,000. But you can still pre qualify people in the DMs, in emails, and things along those lines, sending audios, Voxers. You could still pre qualify people without getting on an actual conversation if it's in that price range. Because you do want to make sure that if you're enrolling anyone that's outside of like a digital course, that they are qualified.
You will encounter people that are easy to talk to, that you have a great experience, but then you will encounter people who are
Yeah.
difficult. Have you had that experience, and how do you navigate the difficult prospects?
Oh, have I? Yes, indeed. Actually, one conversation comes to mind. I was working with an entrepreneur and holding sales conversations for his organization, and he helped people overcome anxiety through his method. So I would hop on calls sometimes with people who had a high level of anxiety. And I know that. There was one circumstance where a lady came on the call. She was very abrasive. If we're looking at a disc scale, I would say very high D, very dominant. She started asking the questions right away. Whoever asks the questions on the conversation is in control. So I think she understood that and she tried to take control right away. Knowing that you have to be the one in control of these conversations, no matter what, you have to gain control of those questions. When you're building rapport, matching energy can be very crucial and good with building rapport, but we don't want to mirror a dominant personality like that, right? We don't want to become abrasive. So when it comes to someone like that, I do the opposite. I become very quiet and I lower my tone and I talk very quietly and kind of in a tone like this because tone matters. So I counteracted her energy and I just asked some open ended questions about how she was feeling that day and if today was the best time for the call. She actually said no and she hung up. And an hour later, she called me back and apologized. So I think she apologized because she heard my tone. She felt at ease. She knows that I wasn't trying to be abrasive or trying to sell her anything. I was trying to understand where she was coming from. We ended up having a very open conversation with a lot of tears, but I made it all about her, asked a lot of questions about how, we got to this point and how she is approaching those conversations in a similar way in all different aspects of her life, personally, professionally, and when she was attracting people. So once we got to the root of that, she felt seen and she felt understood. So you're always going to come across those people. I would say, again, just focus on having a conversation with your best friend. If they're having a bad day or if they're being crappy towards you, meet them with a high level of empathy. I think that's really important. That being said, you also don't want to work with rude, mean people. Say if she hadn't have called me back, that would be fine. She would probably not be the right person to work with. So I think really being able to decipher, is this person having a bad day or are they just not a good fit? It's okay to end a conversation early on if you do encounter someone like that. You don't need to go through the whole conversation. You could just let them know, thank you so much for your time. In our community, we have these values. These are our core values. This is what we live by, and this is how we protect our community. At this time, it doesn't seem like it's going to be the best alignment of values, but I welcome you to come back if you think that maybe we could be a good fit to work together in the future.
I love it. And I think I'm going to use those same words.
Yeah, if it's not aligned, then it's okay. You want to protect your energy for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We want to be seen and we want to feel that we're understood. And even if we know that it's just not going to go anywhere, just to give that person the space to be, even if they are not the right fit. What are the things that you should definitely not do during a sales conversation?
I would say number one, don't talk too much. Most people are talking too much. If you use a tool like Otter or any transcription to record your calls and go back and assess those things, you should be talking less than 40% of the time, probably 40% max. You really want the other person to be talking between 60 to 70% of the time. So, number one, don't do the bulk of the talking. Listen more than you speak. Number two, don't rush the call. I think a lot of people, even if you have maybe a time block of 30 minutes on your Calendly or scheduling link for these type of conversations, create buffers in between those blocks because if you can get into some uncover questions and someone's pouring their heart out to you, keep it going. Don't end the call just because you have another one lined up. The call is going well, have an email template, have your VA, have someone help you, reach out to that next person and push that next call back 15, 20 minutes if needed, but stay on that call, stay invested in that moment because you never know, that next call could be a no-show. Who knows? If it's going well, stay invested into that call. Number three, don't respond to objections that are statements. Respond to the questions. A lot of the time, when you reveal a price at the end of the call, someone will say something like, oh man, this is such a perfect solution for me, but I wasn't expecting it to be that much. Typically, the salesperson will respond right away. That was not a question. That doesn't warrant a response right away. You really want to just be quiet. And I think that's the most challenging part in these conversations is learning to control your own nervous system and your own triggers, because that could make your heart race a little bit, right? That could make you a little bit nervous. Have a dumbbell next to you, a ball that you can squeeze, have something to distract you so you can focus on that other thing and let that person think. Let them marinate in all the information that they just absorbed, the price that they just absorbed. They're just thinking out loud. So give them a moment and then say something like, so after everything that we've spoken about today, are there any other questions about the program or what it's like working together? Ask those questions to really get them to ask you questions because you want the objections. You want to understand what they're thinking. So if they ask a question, you can answer it. But be mindful to not jump and respond to statements because then you sound salesy. You sound like it's just about you. You sound like you're just trying to get a sale. Doesn't sound like you're really respecting their space to really absorb that information. And take your time. I've had, after the price is revealed, probably 30 minutes to 90 minutes added to that call just in dealing with objections and helping people overcome root causes of fear that they maybe didn't realize was there. And essentially, when you're overcoming those objections are typically rooted in either doubt, fear, or some unknown that they just don't know about your program or you yet. So you want to ask those questions to really understand what they're feeling too, because you don't want to enroll someone that's not 100% certain that they want to work with you.
Oof, that is so profound. I think it takes an enormous amount of willpower not to defend your prices and not to justify your prices and not to get defensive when it comes to what you provide because something in you is like, wait a minute, I have spent all this time perfecting my craft and you don't like my prices. That is such a good advice.
Yeah, it's usually not about them not liking your prices. It's just about them maybe needing more clarity, needing more certainty. Maybe it's self doubt in themselves that they can follow through. Far too often, I see people jumping to discounts when it gets to that, or if they have a money
Hmm.
objection without really first uncovering what is behind that objection. If you jump to a discount, you're enabling bad behavior, which is going to continue into that relationship of working together,
Oh,
which is
it's
not going to be
true.
good. Because, for example, if you're a coach and you teach people on how to build successful businesses, but yet you're discounting your services on that first call, If that's not in alignment with what you preach, then that's going to cause misalignment in the program, and that's not working with integrity. So I would say
Hmm.
stay in full integrity, hold on to the value. If someone doesn't want to work with you at your value, it's okay to get a no.
Such good things. And thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you so much. This has been so valuable. If we want to work with you, if people want to work with you, how do we find you?
Yeah.
Please
And
help us out.
I preach everything that I coach. So even if you just want to see what it's like to have a sales conversation with me and just go through that process, just to observe and take notes, I'm okay with that. I'm open to that. I'm on LinkedIn. That's my primary social media account. So I'm Katie with a Y, Katy. On LinkedIn, Hoagland, Hoagland. I just started a new Instagram account called Master High Ticket Sales. I will be posting on there and sharing different things about objection handling, how to go upon the one conversation close. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much for your time, Katie. You've been so generous with all of this information. Like I mentioned, this is so hard to find. And for you to take almost an hour of your time to sit down with me and share all this with me and with my audience, it means a lot. And I know it's going to change the game for a lot of people who are listening or watching this, and appreciate that.
I
And
appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I think sustainability is the name of the game. So ultimately, I just want people to enroll the right people, work with amazing people, and build sustainable businesses. So I just appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing for everyone. It's so amazing. So I'm super happy to support you. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, make sure you share it with a friend. Also, don't be a stranger. Come and say hi on Instagram at Pat Sounds Cool. And until next episode, jefe up.